Celeste Morrison was 62 years old, and for the first time in decades she thought she had finally found peace. After years of raising her son alone, working double shifts as a nurse, and weathering the heartbreaks life had dealt her, she had imagined that her golden years would be spent surrounded by warmth, family, and a little bit of well-earned rest. Her home on the outskirts of Charleston was small but cozy. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that always smelled faintly of coffee, and a garden that bloomed with the bright yellows and purples of lilies she had planted every spring. Celeste was not the kind of woman to demand extravagance. She was a full-bodied woman, with rich mahogany skin and curls that she often tied back with a scarf. Her face carried lines etched by time and struggle, but her smile could still light up a room. That was before Allison arrived. Allison was 33, tall, slim, and sharp as a knife. She had the kind of polished presence that could charm even the wariest of souls. When Marcus, Celeste's only son, introduced her as his girlfriend, Celeste tried to ignore the unsettling tightness in her chest. "Give her a chance," Marcus had insisted. "She's good to me, Mom. She's going to be part of this family." And at first, Celeste tried. She offered Allison her recipes, tried to share stories over dinner, invited her into the warmth of their family. But behind Allison's dazzling smile, Celeste began to notice cracks. The way Allison's eyes lingered on the deeds to the house when Marcus asked about his inheritance, the way she spoke sweetly in public, but snapped cruelly in private when she thought no one could hear. Then came the faint headaches, the dizziness, the nights Celeste would sit at her kitchen table, palms sweating, struggling to remember if she had taken her medication or if someone had slipped her something she shouldn't have. It was Jada, the Britside neighbor's daughter, just 20 years old and studying nursing, who finally noticed something was wrong. One evening, after helping Celeste into bed when another dizzy spell struck, Jada whispered, "Ms. Morrison, I don't think this is natural. Someone's doing this to you." Celeste wanted to brush it off. She had always been strong, always taken care of herself. But deep down, she knew. The suspicion had been gnawing at her ever since she saw Allison lingering too long in the kitchen, watching carefully as Celeste's wineglass filled. The breaking point came on. Christmas Eve, Marcus had insisted that Allison stay the night, claiming they should celebrate together as a family. Celeste had plastered on her warmest smile, even as her stomach churned. She prepared dinner, humming carols softly, and tried to convince herself she was overthinking, but she wasn't. Jada, who had been invited to join them, excused herself from the table after dessert. She returned with a look in her eyes that made Celeste's blood run cold. "I saw her," Jada hissed later in the hallway, gripping Celeste's arm. "I saw Allison put something in your drink." Celeste's world tilted, her heart pounded, her breath caught, and her vision blurred, not from poison this time, but from the crushing realization that her worst fears were true. She confronted Marcus, her voice shaking. "Son, Allison is hurting me. She's poisoning me." But Marcus, blinded by love, refused to believe it. He defended Allison, insisting Jada was mistaken, that Celeste was just tired, confused, exaggerating. And in that moment, Celeste felt the deepest cut of all. Her son, the boy she had raised alone, chose another woman over his own mother. Still, Jada refused to give up. She had seen it with her own eyes, and she was determined to protect the woman who had always been kind to her. Together, she and Celeste began to plan not just for survival, but for justice. That night, when Allison came to the kitchen to fetch more wine, Jada followed quietly, hiding behind the pantry door. She watched as Allison uncorked the bottle, slipped a small vial into the glass, and stirred it with deliberate precision. Jada's phone was already recording. The evidence was there. Clear, undeniable. But Celeste knew it wouldn't be so easy. Allison was clever, manipulative, and dangerous. She had already sunk her claws into Marcus. What else was she capable of? How many others had she hurt? As the clock struck midnight, Celeste stood in her kitchen, staring at the poisoned glass of wine Allison had so carefully prepared for her. The lights of the Christmas tree flickered in the living room. Marcus's laughter echoed faintly down the hall. Jada stood beside her, trembling but fierce, her phone clutched in her hand. Celeste's knees weakened, but not from the poison. From the knowledge that this night was the beginning of something far darker than she had ever imagined. And she made a silent vow to herself. She would not be a victim. She would fight, no matter the cost. The storm had begun, and Celeste Morrison, 62 years old, weary, heartbroken, but unbroken, was about to step into the battle of her life. Celeste awoke the next morning with a heaviness that clung to her chest. The memory of Allison's deceit, of Jada's whispered warning, of Marcus's blind loyalty, all of it pressed down on her like a suffocating blanket. The Christmas lights were still glowing faintly in the living room, their cheer mocking the dread curling in her stomach. She shuffled to the kitchen, her slippers dragging against the worn tile. The wine glass from the night before sat untouched on the counter. She stared at it, the liquid shimmering innocently in the morning light, knowing it carried the promise of her death. She wanted to smash it against the floor, but something held her back. Evidence, proof. Jada's recording might not be enough if Allison twisted the story, as Celeste knew she could. Morning, Mom. Marcus's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood in the doorway, hair mussed, eyes soft with the remnants of sleep. He looked younger in these quiet moments, still her little boy, though now he was 36 and taller than she had ever imagined he would be when she held him as an infant. Morning, baby, Celeste answered, forcing her voice steady. Allison's still asleep, Marcus said, reaching for the coffee pot. She was really tired last night. Celeste watched him pour a mug, the same way she had every day of his life, and her heart ached. She wanted to grab him by the shoulders, shake him, scream at him to open his eyes, but she had raised him to be kind, to trust, and she had never seen him so enamored with anyone before. If she attacked Allison without a careful plan, Marcus might turn further away. Marcus, she said softly, did you notice anything strange yesterday with the wine? He frowned. Mom, we've talked about this. You've been under a lot of stress. Jada's young, she doesn't always understand what she sees. Allison loves you. The words pierced her deeper than she expected. Allison loves you. No, Allison wanted her gone. When Marcus left the kitchen, Celeste gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles turned white. She wasn't just fighting for her life, she was fighting for her son's soul. That afternoon, Jada returned, her curls tucked under a knit hat, her expression fierce. We need to go to the police, she whispered, eyes darting toward the house as if Allison could appear at any moment. Celeste shook her head. Not yet. We need more than a video. Marcus won't believe me, and if the police come too soon, Allison will find a way to slither free. She's clever, Jada too clever, but Ms. Morrison, she's trying to kill you. Celeste placed a trembling hand over Jada's. I know, baby, and we'll stop her, but we have to be smart. For the next few days, the house was a stage, and Celeste was forced to play her part. She smiled at Allison across the dinner table, laughed at her stories, thanked her for helping with the dishes. Allison's eyes sparkled with satisfaction, believing her mask unbroken. But in the quiet moments, Celeste watched. She watched the way Allison handled her phone, always angling it away. She watched the way she hovered near Marcus when financial matters were mentioned. She noticed how Allison insisted on pouring the wine, on preparing Celeste's tea, on offering to help with her medication. Allison was meticulous, careful. She had probably done this before. One evening, Celeste retreated to her room, locking the door behind her. She pulled out a shoebox from the closet, filled with documents: her will, the deed to the house, her insurance policy. As she flipped through the pages, she froze. Some of the signatures weren't hers. They looked similar, but they lacked the subtle curve she always made on the M. Her stomach churned. Allison hadn't just tried to poison her. She had been forging her way into Celeste's life on paper, too. Celeste's mind raced. This wasn't just about survival. It was about dismantling a predator's web, thread by thread. The following Sunday, Celeste and Jada sat together in the garden, the winter air crisp against their cheeks. Jada leaned close. I looked her up, she confessed. Allison, she's changed her name before, twice, both times after the death of an older partner. I don't think Marcus knows. Celeste's heart thundered. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but the picture was one of horror. How do we prove it? Jada glanced toward the house. We keep watching. We keep recording. And when the time comes, we strike hard enough that she can't wriggle free. Celeste nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing with resolve. For too long, she had been passive, letting life and heartbreak wash over her. Not anymore. Inside the house, Allison's laughter rang out, a sound that once might have charmed, now curdled the air with menace. Celeste looked at Jada and whispered, she thinks I'm weak, but she's wrong. I've survived too much to die at her hands. The war had begun, and chapter 2 of Celeste's life was written, not in peace, but in whispers and lies. Celeste could not shake the unease that clung to her like a second skin. Days had passed since Christmas Eve, but the memory of the poisoned wine and Marcus's refusal to believe her lingered in every corner of the house. She moved carefully, now checking every cup, every plate, every pill bottle before touching it. Trust, once given freely, had become a luxury she could no longer afford. That Allison, for her part, seemed unfazed. She carried herself through the house like a queen surveying her kingdom. She fussed over Marcus, laughing at his jokes, brushing crumbs from his shirt, slipping into his arm as though she already bore his last name. To anyone else, she looked like a devoted partner, but, to Celeste, her every movement screamed calculation. Jada remained a constant presence, checking in after classes, helping with chores, keeping her sharp young eyes on Allison. It was Jada who brought the first piece of damning information that would pull the shadows into light. "I did some digging," Jada said one evening as she sat at Celeste's kitchen table, her textbooks pushed aside. "You were right, Ms. Morrison. Allison's not who she says she is. She used to be Amanda Keene. Before that, she went by Alicia Rowe. Both names came up in obituaries. Older men, sudden deaths. No charges were ever filed, but it's too much to be coincidence." Celeste's blood ran cold. She leaned forward, her hands trembling slightly. "How many? 2 that I found, but who knows how many more." The room seemed to tilt, the ticking clock on the wall pounding in Celeste's ears. Allison wasn't just a manipulator, she was a predator. And Marcus, her sweet, gullible boy, was the latest prey. Later that night, Celeste gathered her courage and entered Marcus's room, where he sat scrolling on his phone. "Baby, we need to talk," she began, her voice low. Marcus sighed, setting his phone aside. "Mom, if this is about Allison again." "It is." She cut him off, sharper than she intended. "I know you don't want to hear it, but listen to me. She has changed her name before, twice. Both times after people close to her died. Doesn't that seem strange to you?" Marcus frowned, his brows knitting. For a flicker of a second, Celeste thought she saw doubt. But then his expression hardened. People change names all the time. Maybe she had a bad past. Maybe she wanted a fresh start. That doesn't mean she's some kind of killer. Celeste's heart cracked. "Marcus, I'm your mother. I wouldn't say this if I wasn't afraid for my life and yours. She doesn't love you. She loves what you have. Our home. My pension. Everything I've worked for." But Marcus shook his head. "You're letting Jada fill your head with nonsense. Allison loves me. Why can't you just be happy for me?" Tears stung Celeste's eyes. She wanted to scream, to beg, but she knew the more she pushed, the more Marcus would resist. So she swallowed her grief and left his room, the door clicking shut like a final verdict. The next morning, Celeste woke to the smell of bacon and coffee. Allison stood in the kitchen, her smile too wide. "Good morning, Celeste," Allison chimed, sliding a plate onto the table. "I thought I'd treat you to breakfast." "You deserve it." Celeste glanced at the plate, then at Allison. The eggs looked fluffy, the bacon crisp, but the coffee, she would not touch it. "Not today, thank you," Celeste said, her voice measured. She pushed the food around her plate, pretending to eat while her stomach churned. Allison leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes gleaming. "You've seemed a little suspicious lately. Everything okay?" Celeste met her gaze, summoning every ounce of strength. "I'm fine." The silence stretched between them, heavy and dangerous. Allison finally smiled again, but it was the smile of a hunter who knows her prey is cornered. That evening, Jada showed up with another discovery. She placed a folder on Celeste's kitchen table. "I went to the courthouse. Look at this." Inside were copies of legal documents, a power of attorney draft, unsigned but prepared. Celeste's name was there. So was Allison's, listed as the appointed agent. Celeste's breath caught. "She's trying to take everything." "Not if we stop her," Jada said firmly. Celeste touched the papers, rage and fear twisting inside her. She thought of all the sacrifices she had made, working long nights at the hospital, skipping meals so Marcus could eat, praying she would live long enough to see him thrive. And now, a stranger was plotting to erase it all. But not if Celeste could help it. For the first time in weeks, she felt something stir in her chest. Not dread, not despair, but defiance. Allison had underestimated her, and Celeste Morrison would make sure she lived to regret it. Celeste could feel the pressure building, like a storm pressing against the windows of her home. Every day, Allison's mask seemed to slip just a little more. And every day, Celeste and Jada became bolder in their search for truth. The house, once a place of warmth and refuge, had become a battlefield, one where every smile, every glance, every word was a weapon. On New Year's Eve, Marcus insisted on hosting a small dinner to celebrate. "It'll be fun, Mom," he said. "We all need to relax, start fresh." Celeste forced a smile, though her stomach coiled tight. Relaxation was impossible while Allison hovered like a vulture over her life. But she agreed. Sometimes, you had to step into the fire to prove it was burning. The evening began, innocently enough. The dining room glowed with soft candlelight. Marcus was cheerful, and Allison played the role of perfect hostess. She wore a deep green dress, her hair shining, her laughter musical. To the casual eye, she was dazzling. But Celeste, watching closely, saw the calculation behind her every move. When Allison poured the wine, her hand lingered too long over Celeste's glass. Jada, seated beside Celeste, subtly placed her phone between the breadbasket and her arm, recording. Their eyes met briefly in unspoken pact. Celeste lifted the glass, her hand steady despite the tremor inside her chest. She held it to her lips, but didn't drink. Instead, she set it down, turning her attention to Marcus's story about a project at work. Allison's gaze flicked toward the glass, just for a moment. Enough. Jada's camera caught it. Later, when Marcus excused himself to take a phone call, Allison leaned closer to Celeste. Her smile never faltered, but her voice was low, edged with steel. "You don't like me very much, do you?" Celeste's breath caught, but she kept her tone calm. "I don't know you very well yet." Allison's smile widened. "Oh, but you know enough. You think you see me. You think you can stop me. But you're old, Celeste, tired, and Marcus doesn't believe you. That makes you powerless." The words sliced through the air like a blade. For a moment, Celeste could only stare at her. The truth of Allison's cruelty laid bare. Then, slowly, Celeste leaned forward, her own voice trembling but resolute. "I may be old, but I'm not blind, and I'm not powerless. Not anymore." The flicker in Allison's eyes was brief, but Celeste caught it. Surprise. The mask had cracked. Later that night, when Allison retreated to the guest room, Jada replayed the recording. "We got it," she whispered. "The look she gave the glass, the way she pushed it toward you. It's not everything, but it's something." Celeste nodded, though her heart still ached. She thought of Marcus, blind to the danger sleeping beside him. She thought of the lives Allison had destroyed before, the names she had hidden behind, and she thought of her own life, hard, beautiful, imperfect, and how she refused to let it end in silence. The battle was no longer in whispers. It was moving into the open, and Celeste, weary but unbroken, was ready. The mask was cracking, and once it shattered, Allison would have nowhere left to hide. By the first week of January, Celeste knew that time was running out. Allison's confidence had grown bolder, her grip on Marcus tighter, her intrusions into Celeste's affairs more daring. Papers were shuffled on the dining table, legal forms Marcus claimed Allison was helping organize. Whenever Celeste asked to see them, Allison's manicured hand covered the pages with a sweet laugh. But behind those smiles, the noose was tightening. Celeste and Jada decided it was time to act. "We can't just keep waiting for her to strike," Jada said, pacing the small kitchen. Her youthful energy crackled with determination. "We need to bring her down before she destroys Yora Marcus." Celeste nodded. Fear still gnawed at her, but resolve hardened in her chest. "So, how do we catch her?" Jada tapped her phone. "We already have recordings, but we need her in the act. Clear, undeniable, something the police can't ignore." A plan began to take shape. They would stage an opportunity Allison couldn't resist, a special night where Celeste appeared vulnerable. Her guard lowered, and while Allison made her move, the trap would spring. 2 nights later, Celeste announced she wasn't feeling well. She skipped dinner, claiming fatigue, and retired early to her bedroom. But instead of resting, she positioned a small nanny cam Jada had purchased and hidden discreetly among her bookshelves. Every angle of her bedside table, her water glass, her pill bottles was in view. Down the hall, Allison's voice floated through the air, sweet and concerned. "Marcus, I'll check on her. You stay here." Celeste's heartbeat thundered in her ears as footsteps approached. The door creaked open, and Allison entered, her silhouette sharp against the hall light. "Celeste," she whispered, her tone laced with false tenderness. "Are you awake?" Celeste kept her breathing slow, feigning sleep. Through half-lidded eyes, she watched as Allison moved with practiced ease. She reached into her purse, produced a vial, and unscrewed the cap. Celeste's stomach turned. The predator was at work. Allison tilted the vial over the water glass, letting a few drops fall silently into the liquid. Then she replaced it, smoothed her dress, and leaned over the bed. Her smile was venomous in the dim light. "Sweet dreams," she whispered. And then she slipped out, closing the door behind her. The next morning, Celeste and Jada reviewed the footage together, their hands trembling as the truth unfolded on screen. It was undeniable, clear proof. "This is it," Jada breathed. "We've got her." Celeste nodded, though tears welled in her eyes. To see it laid bare, to watch someone deliberately try to erase hurt, was almost too much to bear. But grief gave way to fury. "Now we take it to the police," Celeste said, her voice steady. The detective at the Charleston precinct was skeptical at first, but when Jada slid the USB across the table, his expression changed. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing as the footage played. "This is strong," he admitted. "It's not every day we get something this clear. If what you're saying about her past identities is true, this might tie her to other cases." Celeste swallowed hard. "So you'll stop her?" The detective nodded. "We'll put her under surveillance. If she makes another move, we'll be ready." Relief washed over Celeste, though she knew the war wasn't over. Allison still believed she was untouchable. She still had Marcus under her spell. But now, at least, the law was on their side. That night, as Celeste lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, her thoughts restless. She remembered Marcus as a boy, running barefoot through the garden, his laughter ringing like music. She remembered every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every prayer whispered that he would grow into a good man. And now, that man was blind to the danger wrapped around him. Celeste whispered into the darkness, her voice trembling but fierce. "I will save you, Marcus, even if it breaks me. Because a mother's love was stronger than poison, stronger than lies, stronger even than the shadows that had haunted her house for far too long." The trap had been set, the hunt had begun, and Allison's time was running out. Celeste did not touch the poisoned water. She remained still, every muscle coiled tight, her mind racing. The camera's tiny red light was hidden, but she prayed it was working. Her entire future now depended on those few minutes of recorded footage. The next morning, Allison was all honeyed smiles at the breakfast table. She poured Marcus his coffee, buttered his toast, and even offered Celeste a gentle, "How are you feeling today, dear?" Celeste forced a wan smile. "Better," she said, her throat dry. Her eyes lingered on the glass of water Allison placed at her side. She didn't drink. Jada came by later, slipping into Celeste's room with nervous energy. "Did it work? Did we get her?" Celeste pulled the small memory card from the camera and pressed it into her hand. "We'll know soon enough." That evening, in Jada's cramped apartment, the two women huddled over her laptop. The footage played back in grainy detail. Allison's entrance, her saccharine voice, the gleam of the vial, the drops falling into the glass all captured. Jada let out a triumphant shout. "We've got her." "Celeste, this is airtight. She can't talk her way out of this." But Celeste's relief was tempered by dread. Marcus, what would happen when he saw this? Would he believe her, or would his loyalty to Allison blind him? 2 days later, Celeste invited Marcus to her sitting room. She had set the stage carefully, tea on the table, curtains drawn, the laptop ready. "Allison's been trying to help," Marcus said defensively when Celeste broached the subject. "She's been nothing but kind." "Watch this," Celeste said firmly, her voice trembling. The video played. Marcus's face drained of color, his hands clenched on his knees, knuckles white. He leaned forward, disbelief etched into every line of his features. "No," he whispered. "No, this can't." But the evidence was undeniable. Allison.com and meticulous poisoning Celeste's glass. Marcus buried his face in his hands. "My God, what have I done? I brought her here. I let her into our home." Celeste touched his arm gently. "We can still stop her, but you need to be strong." That night, Marcus confronted Allison. Celeste listened from the shadows of the hallway. "Allison," Marcus began, his voice taut with rage and betrayal. "I know what you did." Allison laughed lightly, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about?" Marcus slammed the laptop shut in front of her after replaying the footage. You tried to kill her." For a heartbeat, Allison's mask slipped. The softness in her eyes hardened into something cold, reptilian. But just as quickly, she smiled again. "Marcus, darling, you're letting her manipulate you. Think about it. She's always wanted to keep us apart." But Marcus's face was stone. "I saw it with my own eyes. I don't need anyone to tell me what I saw." Silence hung heavy in the room. Allison's smile faded completely. Her lips curled into a snarl. "You'll regret this," she spat, her voice dripping venom. "Celeste, still hidden, felt a chill crawl down her spine. The game wasn't over yet. Allison was cornered, and that made her more dangerous than ever. Allison's words lingered in the air like poison. Asterisk, you'll regret this. Asterisk for Marcus. It was the final confirmation of a nightmare he'd been too blind to see. For Celeste, it was the tolling of a bell. Allison was not beaten, only cornered, and a cornered predator was the most dangerous of all. The next morning, Allison did not appear at breakfast. The house felt unnervingly still, as if holding its breath. Marcus paced the kitchen, his jaw tight. She's plotting, Celeste said softly, watching him. Don't underestimate her now. She's wounded, but she won't slink away. Jada joined them later, her eyes sharp. If she's still in the house, that's a problem. If she's not in the house, that's worse. By late afternoon, the answer arrived. A loud thump outside the front door, followed by silence. Marcus rushed to open it. On the porch lay a box wrapped in bright floral paper. Celeste's stomach clenched as she recognized the handwriting on the card. Asterisk for Celeste, a gift of peace. Asterisk. Marcus tore it open. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a porcelain doll, its face cracked, its dress smeared with something dark and sticky. Blood, paint, neither of them could tell. The note tucked beneath it read, "Sweet dreams, darling." Celeste's hands shook. She's escalating. This isn't about Marcus anymore. It's about me. Jada snapped a photo of the box. We need the police involved, now. But Marcus hesitated. His guilt weighed on him. What if they don't believe us? What if they think it's a domestic feud? Celeste placed a firm hand on his. Marcus, if we wait any longer, I might not survive the next step. That evening, Allison finally appeared, gliding into the dining room with the serenity of a queen. She was dressed impeccably, her hair sleek, her smile radiant. Why so tense? She purred, sliding into a chair opposite Marcus. Have you both forgotten who keeps this household running? Who takes care of you? Marcus slammed a fist against the table. Enough. You've been exposed. I won't let you hurt her again. Allison's eyes narrowed, but her smile didn't falter. You think you can cast me out? You think you can erase me with a few shaky recordings? She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I own you, Marcus, and I'll prove it. Celeste felt a chill crawl through her. There was no more pretending, no more games. Allison's true self was finally revealed, cold, ruthless, and unafraid. The war inside their home had reached its breaking point, and Celeste knew the final confrontation was coming. Allison's threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Asterisk, you'll regret this. Marcus's jaw tightened, but it was Celeste who understood the true weight of those words. Allison had nothing left to lose, and that made her lethal. The night was restless. Celeste barely slept, her mind spinning with possible outcomes. Every creak of the house felt like Allison's footsteps creeping closer. By dawn, she decided, the fight had to end tonight. Jada arrived, her eyes blazing with determination. We have the evidence. We have Marcus on our side. But Allison won't surrender quietly. If she lashes out, we need to be ready. Celeste nodded. Tonight, we confront her, together. Dinner that evening was a performance. The three of them, Celeste, Marcus, and Allison, sat at the long mahogany table like actors on a stage. The silence was unbearable. Celeste finally broke it. It ends tonight, Allison. No more lies. No more games. Allison tilted her head, her smile razor-thin. And if I refuse? Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and steady. Then the police will see the video. They'll see everything. For the first time, Allison's mask shattered completely. Her eyes blazed with fury. She rose from the table, knocking over her chair, and lunged towards Celeste. But Celeste was ready. She held up the vial, the same vial Allison had once used against her. Jada, who had been waiting just beyond the doorway, stepped forward, phone recording, voice clear. We've got you, Allison. Every word, every move. Allison froze. She looked around at Marcus's unflinching stare, at Jada's unwavering lens, at Celeste's steady hands, and realized the truth. She had lost. Her rage curdled into something pitiful. You'll destroy us all, she whispered. You think you've won, but you've ruined everything. Marcus's voice was heavy with grief. No, Allison, you ruined everything. The police came within the hour. Allison was taken away, still hissing venom, her eyes never leaving Celeste. But the spell was broken. When the house was quiet again, Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, Celeste, for not seeing sooner, for bringing her here. Celeste placed a hand on his shoulder. Her voice, though tired, was strong. You saw when it mattered most. And that saved me. Jada gave a weary smile. You didn't just survive her, Celeste. You beat her. Celeste looked out the window, at the first stars breaking through the dusk. She felt older, heavier, but also free. For the first time in years, she could breathe without fear. The war inside her home was over. The woman who had tried to steal her life was gone, and Celeste knew, deep down, she had claimed not only her survival, but her victory.